Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the Be'in podcast. Today, I was joined by the head of Midreshet Torat Chessed, Mrs. Shira Melamed, and I just finished this conversation with her for about an hour, and I am blown away by the conversation that we had, by the Torah she shared, and honestly, in terms of just practical, tangible advice to grow as a person, whether you're in your year in Israel or you're out of your year in Israel, this is an episode that hopefully you will enjoy. So sit back, buckle up if you're on your way to work or wherever you are in the world, and enjoy my episode with Mrs. Shira Melamed. Enjoy. Welcome to the Israel Gap Year Be'in podcast. I'm your host, Avi Proctor, and in each episode, we get Be'in in depth into the remarkable lives of individuals in Israel who dedicate themselves to inspiring the next generation of Klal Yisrael. Okay, we are ready to rock and roll. I'm beyond excited for this episode because this is a long time in the making. For those that are watching this visually, they can see that I'm joined by Rebbe Shira Melamed from Midreshet Torat Chessed. For those that are listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever that is, you probably clicked on this episode not because you want me to hear me speak, it's because I want to hear you speak. So I just want to start off with this episode. Rebbe Melamed, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day.
I'm so excited.
And I'm pumped for this conversation. And I think what's so special about this conversation is that there's a lot of people that I interview on this podcast from many different schools. And they're obviously passionate about a lot of things that they discuss. But what's so interesting about this episode, and I think people are going to get the concept of what we're discussing as we go, is that everything that we're discussing today, which is related to chesed, midot, growth in your year in Israel, I think is very, very, very unique to the seminary that you run, which you'll give people a greater insight into exactly that. So before we jump into our specific topics of what I want to touch on with you, I'm sure there are a lot of people that are probably listening to this episode that have never heard of you before, have never heard of Midreshet Torat Chessed. So give me and the listeners a little bit of a rundown. How did we get here? How did we get here today?
Okay, so my name is Shira Melamed. I grew up in Manhattan. I went to Ramaz and I made Aliyah at the age of 18. I knew already in 10th grade that I wanted to make Aliyah. I wanted to make Israel my home. I always say that, I quote the Sfat Emet that says that every Amirah, every statement that Hashem makes, it continues to go on throughout life and throughout the world and throughout time. So when Hashem said Vayihi Or, it wasn't a one-time thing. Or is something that keeps happening. So when Hashem told Abraham Lech Lecha, it kept happening. Like the whisper of Lech Lecha continues to resonate throughout time. And there is no other explanation as to why at 18 I wanted to pick up my life and move to Israel all by myself with no plan, like no actual idea of what I'm going to do. It's because I heard Lech Lecha. So I came to Israel. And from there, I went to SEM. I actually spent the year in Midreshet Harova, and I knew I was going to make lifelong friends who I was going to make Aliyah with, which I did. And after that, I did national service. I worked in a gan. It was a gan to a school of kids with autism, very low functioning children with intense autism. And after that, I went to Bar Ilan. I got my degree in social work. And I have actually, since graduating, I've been in the world of seminaries ever since. And when I heard about an opportunity to open a seminary that combines Torah and Chesed, it was as if the thing that I didn't even know was missing in the world was given to me on a platter. And I said, I need to go check it out. So I went to Netanya. We're located in Netanya in a children's home in Beit El-Ezraki, which is Beit Sabah El-Ezraki, which is a children's home for around 200 children who have been removed from their homes because of abuse, neglect, like anything you can think of in your imagination are some of the reasons why the children are brought to us. They range from age 5 to 18. And Yehuda Cohen, who's the director of the children's home, he was under a lot of pressure to open up a seminary, because people were feeling that their kids are going to Israel for the year and they could come back and, quote the Barbanel and the Parsha, which is amazing. But if before the year in Israel, their mother asked them to throw out the garbage, after the year in Israel, they, again, were quoting the Barbanel and they're making so much time for a daf. But if their mom says, can you throw out the garbage? They were still saying no, which troubled a lot of people. And they went to Yehuda Cohen and they said, please open up a seminary. And he said, I have 200 children. The last thing I need is a group of American girls walking around here and taking responsibility for that. And they said, no, you don't understand. It's going to be good for your kids. It's going to be really good for your kids. he said, if it's going to be good for my kids, then I want to try. And it has. It's been really, really good for his kids. Our students have helped raise the children of Beit El-Zraki for over a decade. And it has been life-changing for our students and for the children as well. So I was told to come check out this possibility. And I remember I drove to Netanya with my husband, and we were like, who is going to come to Netanya? This is who's going to come? There was no such thing as a seminary out. Everything was Jerusalem, like maybe Beit Shemesh if you were really, feeling daring and you want to be like out of town. So I went obviously it was pouring rain that day and everything was gray. And I was just I was not feeling it. And then I met Yehuda Cohen, the director of the children's home. And he took me to say Shema with the children before they went to sleep. And I said, listen, if it works, it doesn't work. Like, I don't care. I need to try. And the rest is history. Like I said, we're going into our 14th year. And the combination of Torah and Chesed, it just speaks for itself.
That is wild. I need to unpack a little bit more of what you said, because like at the end of the day, what I think is something that's so inspirational about the beginning of this whole story and how MTC got off the ground is that when you start something in life and which is not the typical, as you just said, maybe Beit Shemesh, maybe you go that far out, but like Netanya, that's far, it's different. The structure of combining Torah and Chesed together. But what I think is also so important of what you said, which is in the Kudah to highlight, is that you have a lot of students that go to Israel, they learn, but when they get home, they don't take the trash out with their parents, right? So it's something that is. It's something that's so important. And I want you to touch on a little bit more of what were the early days like in MTC? What, I'm sure you went through struggles and challenges, and what kept you going to see the bigger vision to get you here today? Okay,
I'll tell you. You're absolutely right. You've clearly started something, Avi, because anyone who knows what it is to start something knows that it's not easy. It's very hard to start something. And I believe that whoever starts something, they have Yad Hashem in what they're doing. Like we're just shlichim in this world. And there were a lot of obstacles. Also, explaining this to schools, there were schools that wouldn't let me go in to present because they would say halftime learning, that's bitul Torah. There were schools that said it's for girls who they can't learn all day. So this is b'di'evet. And I remember I would want to scream it from the rooftop, b'di'evet to do chesed. I don't even know, what are you even talking about? It's all over our Torah. It is all over our Torah. It's all, are we not reading the same book? And it was so frustrating to me because I know what it is to be a woman. And I know that the thing that lights our heart up more than anything is when we give to another. This isn't me making it up. This is the way Hashem created us. I want to fight the way Hashem created me. Hashem created me in a way that Torat Chessed ad Lishona, that she doesn't have a Torah that's not Chesed, that every single Torah that she swallows, she can make the world a better place. So the beginning was very frustrating because no one understood this concept. But I could not, I'm not a person who is a doer. It's not my personality at all. It was actually, I worked in a different seminary before MTC, and I was the first MBite of that seminary. I was 22 years old. And I remember 2 days before the end of the year, all the passports were stolen. 2 days before the end of the year. And I remember looking at the administration and being like, wow, that is just rough. I am so sorry for you guys. And just thinking, why would anyone choose this profession to run a program? And I remember saying to myself, I would never do that. I would never. You need to finish,
by the way, I never cut people off. You have to finish what happened in that story, by the way, because I'm sure people want to know. They didn't
sleep for 48 hours. The police got involved, and all the girls, they got a bus to the embassy. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare.
Wow.
Yeah, running a seminary is a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of responsibility. We don't sleep for 9 months. If you do it right, you're not sleeping for 9 months. So I like sleeping, and I like enjoying life. So I remember saying, there's no way I would start anything. So this is when Hashem wants you to do something, you just do it. And there's no stepping aside, and there's no saying no. And I spoke to him a lot in those beginning years. And I would say to him, Ribono Shel Olam, if you want me to do this, I need your help. Like, I cannot do this without you. This is hard. This is lonely. This is a fight. And wow, I felt him every day. Like, Mama, I still do. I walk around MTC and I say, like, Hashem, this place just must make you so proud. And I'm just so honored to be part of it.
Wow. I love that. And I think it's so inspirational. And I want you to talk, because I've seen, obviously running Israel Gap for the past, 6-7 years, and NPC being here for 14, like I've seen the growth from the stage that I've seen it, and it's grown a lot. So just talk about that in terms of the numbers, the girls, where they come from, the impact, and what you've seen from that time period of when you began.
Yeah, it started with 5. We were 5 girls. I call them our pioneers, and I have a lot of hakarat tov to them. I always say that because of them, hundreds of girls have been able to come to MTC. You always need people to start. So this is really my shout out to, if there's SEMs that are trying to open and you're not sure, should I go, shouldn't I go? Think of yourself as a pioneer. Like, if you don't go, then your grandchildren won't have a SEM. Your children won't have a SEM. Someone needs to start. So if you're on the fence of whether or not should I go, there is no other way for a seminary to start than with students. So I'm very grateful to those five students. And then, and every year, slowly but surely, another 5, another 5, another 5, another 5. And we kept expanding. And every, the director of the children's home, he was like, okay, 15 girls. We'll have 15 girls, Yehuda Cohen, and he knows already. I come into his office around recruitment time. I'm like, one more. He's just like, one more. He's like, Shira, you're killing me. Like, okay, like one more. I mean, I definitely don't want to, I don't want this to be a plug for MTC, because we have a very large amount of applicants and a small amount of space. We can only, next year we're expanding to 45. Bezrat Hashem.
Wow.
This is you heard it first, Avi.
First on the Israel Gap podcast. It's a lot. By the way, you're allowed to plug it. It's totally fine. These are natural conversations, and it's something that's really special. And first of all, if people know anything about what's going on in North America, there are a lot of girls and there are not a lot of seminaries. So it's a problem with every school in terms of what you just said.
Yeah. It's a big problem. It's a really big problem. I know, but because we're the smallest SEM, we definitely feel it significantly.
I could imagine, and I love that what you just said, how you walk into Rabbi Cohen's office and you have to kind of fight for that one extra student every single year, and it's Bezrat Hashem, when we do part 2 of this episode in 10 years from now, you'll be way more than 45, and we'll see where that goes.
Well, it's funny because more than 45 means we need more children in the children's home. It's always like a funny thing to daven for,
gotcha.
Right? Because the whole point is we can't have more than 4 girls in a group of 15 kids. It would be like having 10 counselors in a bunk. The magic wouldn't exist. So it's I always say, like, what am I davening for? Like, more kids in the children's home, or
I got you. Speaking of the magic, that brings me into I think exactly what I want to discuss with you today, because NPC is awesome. You're bringing chesed into the year, but at the same time, as we know, not every school does make chesed a pivotal part in the structure of everything that they do. So I want to formulate the question to you of why should essentially chesed be a pivotal part in yeshivot and seminaries as well in their year in Israel?
So the easy answer is because Hashem said so. Like, that's the that's the checkmate answer right there. I'll expand on that by saying that our in every single thing you learn is the year in Israel is the opportunity for Jewish men and women to come into the source of their book and source of their religion and learn. No other religion does that. No other religion says, let's take a year, bring all the youth to the source of the book and ask anything and internalize anything. And we're here, and solidify who you are. Now, how do we solidify who we are? By actions. And how do we solidify what we learn? By actions. There is no, if you take the learning concept to any other, type of learning, you always have solidifying the learning by actions, right? No one's going to be a doctor without doing internships first, without, having residency. No one is even going to be a social worker with having what we call avodah masit, which is, I don't know, I learned it in Hebrew, so I don't know what it's called in English. Field work, right? Whenever you're learning something, you need to act on it in order to solidify what you have learned. It is no different with Torah. No different. If you learn Torah, then you solidify your Torah by actually doing the mitzvot, right? When you put on tefillin, when you go and daven in a minyan, when you're eating kosher, when you're keeping Shabbat, that is you solidifying the mitzvot. Now, there is an entire sect of mitzvot called Ben Adam L'Chavero that the only way for us to solidify them is to do them. And that's chesed. And chesed can be, there's endless opportunities for chesed every single day. And the fear is if you don't solidify your chesed, then you're very Ben Adam L'Makom heavy. And Ben Adam L'Makom heavy can be very dangerous because what's happening is you are writing a Torah that doesn't exist. You're writing Torah that doesn't exist. Ben Adam L'Chaver is it's everywhere. It's all over what we're supposed to do, and you cannot. There's actually a beautiful there's so many. We'll get to this in a second. But there's.
By the way, I saw your post today. I saw your post with Basil Sharm. You said it's like the only way to go, or something. I forgot exactly what it was.
It's the only way. It's the only
exactly.
way. It's the only way. Yeah. So the point is that if we don't fully learn something without experiencing it, then you can't fully learn it. There's no other way to experience Ben Adam L'Chavero without chesed.
I really think that's a very, very good point. And like at the end of the day, it's Lilmod, Lishmor, Velasos. You gotta at the end of the day, you gotta live your Judaism, you gotta live your Yiddishkeit. And I think that there are a lot of people in the year in Israel that I hate to say it like this, but sometimes sitting and learning is not always the most impactful way that could really change them and make them evolve into who they are. And I'm sure you've seen that obviously through your experiences. But I think what's also from what I've seen, and this is why I'm curious to hear your take on this, I think that in a lot of schools, since chesed is not a pivotal part built into the structure of the day, people sometimes look at it as like, in quotations, like an extra additive Correct. Or an extracurricular.
Optional.
So exactly. Talk to me about that. Like, why do you think that has become the standard? Why does it get lost, essentially?
I'll tell you, it's always been the standard. I think change has to happen. I think it's always been the standard, and it's fair for us to look and understand that. I mean, if there's a beautiful Gemara in Kiddushin that says that Talmud Gadol shmevi leidei maaseh, that everything you learn is supposed to bring you to do what you are learning. So if we make chesed optional, then what we're really doing is we're saying that this isn't as important as everything else. And I think that, I mean, if we could just like get to the concept of bitul Torah for a second.
Oh,
I think this
for
is,
sure.
Yeah, I think this is the, like where it really, I think this is the core of where all this is coming from. And I understand it because if you have a year in Israel, there's so many options for bitul Torah. The Yetzer Hara is huge. It can get us to lose on opportunities that are once in a lifetime. Like it's wild. We can have a once in a lifetime opportunity and the Yetzer Hara can literally destroy it for us. So bitul Torah is there to teach us that if you are not learning Torah, you're probably not doing something good. So what happened is that chesed kind of came into this world of non-Torah because they're out on their own, because they're independent, because it's the year in Israel and who knows where they're going and who knows what they're doing. And it's a very dangerous thing because what happened is bitul Torah has now turned into, I won't throw out the garbage for my mother because it's bitul Torah. And I think we just need to define what bitul Torah is. Bitul Torah is, if you look at the word, it's bitul, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that bitul is to levater.
Nullify.
It's to nullify, nachon, with the X. It's to nullify, exactly. So if I'm going to nullify my learning, it pretty much means that I am doing something that goes against what I learned. Which means that if it's a mitzvah, it's not bitul Torah. Right? Like if I go, like Avi, if you go and you buy your wife a beautiful necklace for Pesach, that's not bitul Torah because you're actually exemplifying what Torah tells you to do. And if you help an old lady cross the street, that's not bitul Torah because you are doing a mitzvah. Now, the really wild thing is that for women, there is no halacha bitul Torah. Like the concept doesn't exist within women. So I understand the men. I understand, again, like we have to have structure, we have to have this concept of bitul Torah, and you have to make sure that if you're doing something that is against what you're learning, you understand that that's bitul Torah. You're mamish, you're nullifying everything that you learned. If you go in the base and you have a beautiful day of learning, and then that night you speak lashon hara, you're mamish nullifying everything you learned. Because again, your actions solidify the things that you're learning. For women, there is no concept of bitul Torah. Because women have the obligation to make the world go round with chesed. It's the way we were created. People ask me all the time, why don't you open a YTC, Yeshiva Torat Chessed? Boys and girls are different. Boys and girls are really different. Girls are created in a way that their hearts are fed when they're giving to another. Now, obviously, I'm not saying boys are bad people that don't give, but tell me if I'm wrong, but if you see a boy that needs help, and if a girl sees a boy that needs help, it'll be an experience for her. Chava is from the word chavaya, like everything's an experience for her. And Adam is from the word adama. He's very here. We're like, he's thinking all the time, like, okay, boy needs help, I give boy help. Like that's it, I did it. For a woman, it could change her. It could change who she is by helping this boy. So we can't underestimate the role that chesed plays in a woman's life, because it shapes her. It shapes who she is.
Wow. That was great. First of all, I never heard that word on Adam and Chava, and I think that's a very valid point. And I do think it's also very important to point out for people that, like, if you're a guy in yeshiva and you're listening to this conversation, I would say it's more applicable to, the seminary world, because there's, a lot of seminaries where, as you mentioned, the halacha of bitul Torah is not, necessarily applicable to women. And I think that it's something just to keep in mind, and I want to point that out. And I think
Absolutely.
that the next, the
really
next thing,
point. Yeah.
Yeah, the next thing I want to channel into that I'm thinking about is that if somebody's in, let's say, the picking stage of a seminary in Israel, and obviously, like, we're gonna just, you are the head of Midreshet Torat Chessed, but I think they're, every seminary is right for different people. But, like, for somebody that's thinking to themselves, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm not sure if I want to go to a place where they don't give me enough opportunities for Chesed. Do you think that they should be looking into those options that don't necessarily give them that ability? I mean, what I'm trying to get to is, how does somebody know? Obviously, not every girl might connect to chesed as much as others, and they might not feel that chavaya as much as others. So how does somebody pinpoint for themselves, if they're still figuring out where they want to go for their year in Israel, is that more the experience I want, or is that not?
Excellent question. I think that to go to a seminary, to say, I don't want to go to this sem because it doesn't have enough chesed, but I love everything else about the sem. I love that it's in Jerusalem, and I love the learning, and I love the options, and I love, where the girls come from, and I love the teachers. Go to that sem. Because the good thing about chesed is you could do it everywhere. You can literally do chesed everywhere. You do not need a seminary to give you chesed in order for you to do chesed. You're going to Israel for the year, I don't care where you go. You are doing chesed. It is super important. Your roommate's sick, you bring her something, you bring her soup. Your roommate doesn't have where to go for Shabbat, you invite her to go with her for Shabbat. Someone is feeling lonely, she misses her parents, you tell her, come, let's go out. You know someone's sick, you leave her a note and you say, I was thinking about you. Let me know when you wake up, I want to know how you're feeling. Chesed is not something that you need in MTC. It exists everywhere, and it's very dangerous to say that the only way I'm going to do chesed is if it's in the program. You're going to do chesed wherever you are in life. And it's super important to remember that if you want a full day of learning, go to a program that has a full day of learning. It is incredible to learn all day. Oh my goodness, what a zchut to learn all day. I once had a student that she was always in the base, always. After night seder, she'd stay, and before classes, she'd go. And I said to her, I was like, what's going on? Like, why are you, why are you learning like you're running out of time? Like, what is this? And she said to me that there's going to be 2 times in her life where she's going to have the zchut to learn Torah like this. One is now, and the other is in Gan Eden. She said that I know that I'm going to, get married, have children, and I'm not going to be able to sit here and learn. Like, it's not going to happen. And I know that that's what Gan Eden's going to look like also. Next year's Gan Eden. Learning Torah all day is Gan Eden. Go. If you want to be in a program that learns Torah all day, I'm pushing you out the door. And I'm telling you, go. Oh, they don't have enough chesed? Okay. Guess what? All you need is people for chesed. That's all you need. And there's people everywhere. And you're in Israel. Hello, guys, you're in Israel. Every single person's a Jew. You help a person in a store, you did chesed. You help, and even just to grow the land, there's so many different opportunities for chesed. And Am Yisrael needs you, and Israel needs you, and just being here. And by the way, being here and going to Waffle Bar is chesed. You're being mifarnas a Jew. So definitely don't feel like if they don't have enough chesed, I don't know what I'm going to do. Find the chesed and do the chesed. And that's what real giving is. Real giving isn't, I always, I tell my students all the time when they transition into MTC that they're used to a certain kind of giving. Like they're used to like Camp Hask and Camp Simcha, which are amazing places, but the giving so loud and it's shtick and it's swag and it's shoulders and it's like the face paint and that's not life. That's camp. And giving is quiet and it's subtle and it's sanua. Giving is very sanua. And those are all things you could do in every single program you go to.
That was, first of all, you said a lot of good points. I don't want to touch on a few of those. I think the first thing that you mentioned was that Chesed's universal. It's not that you're limited to, hey, I go to this school, they have Chesed built in my schedule, I do it. So if somebody's listening to this, obviously I think my question before was more catered to somebody who's picking a seminary, but now I think I want to cater it more to somebody that's listening who's in Israel. And also this applies to somebody that's outside of Israel. But still, if somebody's, in seminary and they are not in a school where they have enough opportunities for Chesed, they have a lot more than they probably think. I think that's a very important takeaway from what you're saying. And also being in Israel. Well, the things that you do here that you would seem on the surface level are mundane that you would do in America is much different here because there's a lot more meaning behind it. And obviously you're in a Jewish country with Jewish people. And my follow-up to you is that if, the majority of students that are in seminary in Israel are not in a structured system where they have enough opportunities for chesed. And as you were saying before, one of the concepts of the year in Israel is you want to prepare yourself to be able to learn to grow as a Jew, to now leave Israel and put that into practice. And one of those ways, obviously, you can learn as much Torah as you want, but if you're not practicing chesed on a practical level and you're not helping your parents when you go back home, then in a certain way, what was it all for? So my question to you is that if you look at the year in Israel, I think that's, on a surface level for a lot of people, it's very easy to gauge your growth when it comes to, okay, I came in to this year in Israel. I didn't know how to read Hebrew so well. I didn't know how to translate a sefer. And 6 months down, now I'm able to sit in the Beit Midrash and I'm able to feel like I'm learning independently. And then you keep growing in those aspects. But I think what's very, very hard for people is to get a gauge on how selfless they are, how much they're able to think about other people, and in terms of the growth in their chesed. So for somebody that might be in their year in Israel, let's listen to this. That's like, that wants to know if, hey, I'm trying to work on myself in the year in Israel, and I know how important chesed is, but I don't know where I'm necessarily holding at because I'm not around my family. I'm not back, out of that environment, and I'm really in seminary. Any advice for those students to get a good gauge of where they feel like they're holding at?
I tell the girls all the time that growth, it's exactly what you said. It's not something you could notice. Other people notice it. What I do is at the end of the first semester, every girl, I write words and I put them in cookies just because it's fun. But you don't have to put it in a cookie. It's a lot of work. I write Chava Milshon Chavaya Avi. I was like, we want our words in cookies. So what I do is I write words, just regular words like davening, parents, mincha, lashon hara, and what I do is the girl gets the word and she has to look at the word and say, how have I grown in this area? And I'm telling you, no matter what word the girls get, they have found places where they have grown, in areas that they have grown within that word. A girl cannot, anyone, boys and girls, they can't gauge their own growth. And I think that it's also, I think I wouldn't ask other people, like, how have I grown? I think that that's strange. I think the best way to do it is to make a list of words and say, okay, words like patience, independence, Israel, tzniut, things that, I am now 4 months in, 5 months in, I'm looking at it for the first time in an objective lens. How have I grown? Forget over the word growth is so confusing. You have to pinpoint it into different areas. And when you dissect it, you see, I've grown like that, and I've grown like this, and I no longer speak to my parents that way. I know I don't. Like, I used to really lose my temper with them, and I don't anymore. And I think another really good thing to do, again, I don't know if boys do this, but for girls, this is a really good piece of advice. Keep a journal. Keep a journal from the day you land, and you write 3 questions in them. Question number 1: what did I do today that I don't want to do tomorrow? Question number 2: what did I do today that I want to make sure I do tomorrow as well? And question number 3: what did I learn today that I love? And what those 3 questions do is that they force you to look at your day differently. Because first of all, I'm going into class and I need to learn something that I loved. If a girl goes into class and she says, I've learned this already. No, you haven't, because you've never learned it with this teacher, and you've never learned it in Israel for the year, and you've also never learned it as the girl you are today. The Ramchal says that in Mesilas Yesharim, you're not supposed to read the Sefer once. You're supposed to read it over and over and over again, because you're different every single time you read it. And the Torah is dissected, it's internalized differently according to where you are and as we mature. And the other thing is that it really makes sure that you're aware of what you're doing throughout the day by keeping that journal. And then you can look at growth, because you know what? I want to look back at October. Like, what did I do in October that I don't want to do tomorrow? And you look at October, you're like, whoa, who is that kid? I don't even know her. I would never want to do that today.
I think that, first of all, that's very practical advice. And I think for anybody that's listening to this, we're putting this episode out probably sometime in February of the year in Israel. And I just want to say for people, it's not too late to start. And in terms of just getting a gauge of where you're holding at, I think that's phenomenal advice of write those things down, look at, do a little bit of cheshbon and nefesh in a certain way. And obviously, you said before, I'm not sure if yeshiva guys do this. I'm going to say this. I rarely say anything personal on this podcast, but when I was in yeshiva, I think it was probably January time of my Shana Aleph, I brought a notebook to a shir, and I said, you know what? I'm going to call this my wow book. And anytime I hear a rabbi that says something wow, when my mouth goes wow, I'm going to write it down. And if I didn't hear anything that was wow, I didn't. And sure enough, after my Shana Bet, I had 2 full notebooks written down of things. They're sitting on my shelf, and 7 years out of Israel, whenever I need a little bit of chizuk, I could open that up. And you can look back and be like, wow, I remember that shir. And I think for anybody that's listening to this, as a practical plug from myself to them, seminary or yeshiva, do it. Don't wait. Do it now, and you'll thank yourself later. That's my advice on that. And my follow-up to you, which is in the next level of growth, I think that for a lot of students in Israel, sometimes they take their spiritual growth and they get very intense. And when you get very intense, a lot of people talk about the year in Israel and they say it's a year to be selfish. It's a year to focus on yourself. And obviously people are, for those that are not watching right now, I don't think they saw you, but
you hit a nerve. You hit a nerve.
So this is, I'm glad. So I want you, I'll spell out in a second, but for people say the year in Israel is a year to be selfish. It's a year to, focus on yourself. And I think sometimes a lot of people, in a certain way, I'll say this line, like they get lost in the sauce. They're really in it. They're focused on themselves, obviously. And at the same time, sometimes what happens is now everything else falls to the wayside. Their relationships with other people, the way they're acting to everybody else. And in a certain way, not to say that this is everybody, but there's certain people that you might look at and be like, they are a novel Midreshet Torat. There's somebody that's acting in a way that they're not representing the Torah, and they're not taking the midos, and the Torah is not seeping in. So I want you to touch on that for a little bit and give advice to those people that might be really, really in it, that are that could use a little bit of that chizuk in terms of just the broader aspect of what I was discussing.
Yeah. Torah and mitzvot are good for you. They're very good for you. I always tell my students, in the beginning when they're homesick, I'm like, Torah and Chesed is just good for you. Like, nothing bad can happen to you if you're doing Torah and Chesed. Now, what's the problem? The problem is if it's internalized and swallowed incorrectly. I'll give you an example. I remember one time, after one of my births, I got an IV, and the nurse didn't put it into the vein. She put it into the skin. Now, the fluid is fantastic. I needed it. I needed it to get better, to get strong. I needed it to fill everything I was lacking, but she didn't put it where it was supposed to go. So I couldn't do it. I didn't deal with it correctly. And I think it's the same thing. Every single time you see a kid this is just the most important thing I want to say, who maybe is not is not acting in a way of midot and is not acting in a way of Derech eretz, that's not Torah. It's so important for me that everyone understands that. Like, if you see a girl or a boy dressed so tsanua and they're pushing an old person to get onto the bus, that's not Torah and mitzvot. He or she just swallowed it incorrectly. Torah and mitzvot never lets you do the wrong thing. Ever. You can follow. We're so blessed. We're so blessed to have a book. We don't even need to guess what's right and what's wrong. And if we did, oy vavoy, I don't even know what society would look like. So that's, first of all, they don't represent Torah mitzvot, and they're confused. Okay, that's the first thing. How do you prevent that from happening? The learning has to be like a well-balanced meal. You can't just learn, dinim. You can't just learn halacha. You mamish have to see learning as the triangle, which I heard they changed, but you have to see it as your body needs, carbs, it needs protein, it needs iron, your neshama needs the same as well. It needs musr, it needs halacha, this.
Mesilas Yesharim. For those that are listening, they can't see, so it's Mesilas Yesharim. I'm just pointing that out.
Wow, Mesilas Yesharim in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night, all day long. Mesilas Yesharim, and actually, the Ramchal speaks. He speaks so beautifully about the firmer you are, the more at risk you are to do a chilul Hashem. And he speaks about it in a midat nekiyut, and it's so beautiful. He says that that every single person, that the higher he is, he has more of an obligation to treat people with respect. If you're wearing a kippah, it's a responsibility. If you're wearing a long skirt, it's a responsibility. And I think that to make that question very clear, like to make the answer clear to the question, if a person is not focused on their midot and they're not treating people with respect, then they do not represent Torah and mitzvot. I remember we live in very close to Kiryat Sanz. It's a community. The Klausenberger Rebbe, he survived the Holocaust, and he said, if I survive tuberculosis, I'm going to open Laniado Hospital. I really recommend everyone to learn his life story. It's unbelievable. And we're very connected to Kiryat Sanz because we live very close to them. It's an amazing chassidut. And one of the girls, we always bring a woman from Kiryat Sanz to speak to the students. And one of the girls asked, how could it be? I saw a woman on the bus and, someone dropped their phone and she didn't help her. And the woman said, okay, so she did something wrong. That's it, to say it's because of Judaism, and to say like that's what religion, I don't want to become religious because then I become like that. That's false. That person did not internalize their learning correctly, and they didn't put the IV into the vein. They put it into their skin.
Wow. I love how you started with that mushal and then you flush it out of there. And I think, one of the most important kudos that you just mentioned, which is so true, is that when the more religious you get, the greater the responsibility. The more religious you look, the greater the responsibility. And even more so, it's dafka when you leave Israel, because when you're around Jews, okay, maybe if a Jew sees you not helping another Jew, I'll give you an out on that one. But when you go out into the real world, it's even more, you're an ambassador of the Jewish people, and there's only so many Jews in the world. And with everything going on in the world, we need as many good Jews as we can. So I think that's a really good point. And I you're touching on the Mesilas Yesharim, that it is a phenomenal sefer. It really, really guides people. And obviously you are a teacher, and that's one of the main things that you'd like to learn with your talmidot. Now, I'm curious to hear your opinion on, if you have all these students in Israel, they're being taught by phenomenal educators from all across the board, from all different schools, and their job, I guess you could say, on a surface level for those educators is you come, you give a shir, you give makorot, you give a sheet, you teach them how to learn. Okay. And at the same time, maybe you get, as a student, you get invited over to their house once in your entire 10 months for Shabbos, so you get to see what they look like outside the seminary. But at the same time, so they sometimes, by the way, a lot of teachers, they come for an hour and then they leave, and they come twice a week and they give a shir. So you don't really have a chance to see the teacher as a role model and exemplifying the midos that they are teaching. So in my opinion, I'm curious to hear your perspective. Like, how important is the responsibility of the educators in Israel to literally develop the midos of all their talmidim here?
It's crucial. It's imperative. It's I remember when I was learning for the SATs 100 years ago, I took a class, and we asked the teacher, we said, what did you get on your SATs? And he was like, what, a 1600, obviously. He's like, would you want to be taught by someone who didn't get a 1600? And I remember that until today. It's the same exact thing. If you have a teacher that comes in and doesn't have good midot and doesn't treat the students with respect, that is very confusing to the students. Educators have to understand that the students this year, they're thirsty. They're so thirsty, and they will also swallow what they are given, because there's also a lot of pressure this year. Like, from the second they land, the clock is ticking, and they feel it. They really, really feel it. So everything that's said, they're being internalized, and they're writing down, and they're swallowing, and they're trying to internalize it. Now, if you have a rav or a teacher that comes in and is rude to the girls and the boys, or, I hear a lot of stories about what happens in yeshivas, so I don't really Like, I don't know. I'm not going to go into that, but like even like a joke that, lo yadat, something that makes something that makes them something that might embarrass someone in the class. This is now, it's okay. Meaning it is now, if my teacher can do it, I can definitely do it. And I always say that if you're going into education, welcome to Yom Kippur for the rest of your life. Yom Kippur for the rest of your life. You are being watched from morning until night. And it is the biggest zchut in the world to have Yom Kippur your entire life. Because it's an ideal. Yom Kippur is a day of the angels. And it's exhausting and it's tiring, but it's also the biggest opportunity to live your life in a meaningful way. So if there's anyone out there that's not sure whether or not to go into education because, oh my goodness gracious, what a job. It is obviously the students will, the chain of, what will happen from you teaching them and the ripple effects will go on for generations, but you will never have a job that helps you work on yourself like being in education.
Wow. I've never had a teacher ever phrase it to me like that. And I think it's a very interesting way to view it. You have a tremendous responsibility, obviously, and people are always watching you. And I want to touch on that a little more of yes, it's a zechut to have it, that Yom Kippur is basically every single day for you in your life. But I can imagine it's hard sometimes. So like take me and everybody into that in a little bit deeper level. Like, do you ever feel that, I don't want to call it pressure, but is it ever like, wow, like, this is hard?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. I think it's also important for students to see that teachers are human. But being mean is something, or anger is something that a teacher's not allowed to have. No anger. We're allowed to have kas, the Ramchal speaks about kasapanim and kasalev, and educators are allowed to have kasapanim. But if you are angry at a student, and I'll tell my students this, I'll never speak to you if I'm angry, ever. I'll say to you, what, let's speak about this tomorrow. Because we say things we don't mean when we're angry. And also for my children, they know. Like if I have to speak to Ima tomorrow, like, oh my God, it's not good. And I think that, but it's all an opportunity because, they're going to be parents too one day in Midreshet Hashem, and they're going to have to learn. Is it hard? Of course it's hard. I mean, we all have lives. I have a husband who's a paratrooper who was away for a year. He was away for a year. Wow. And, his friends were shot and he's a medic and it's not normal. But it wasn't normal, the things that we had to go through. And I remember there was one year, it was actually last year, he was in Lebanon and it was banquet. And for banquet, I write about each girl. And I remember saying, okay, like Ribbono Shel Olam, I can't write about each girl. I can't. Like, I'm only human. I have my own children. My husband's in Lebanon. And then I was on the computer. It was actually on his computer because usually he takes his computer with him into the army because he continues to work from wherever he is. And his WhatsApp was connected to the computer. And all of a sudden I see his WhatsApp pop up and they say like, Melamed, how many wounded? I was just like, oh my gosh, what happened? What happened? And I see this entire thing play out. My kids are in the background, banquet's in a minute, and he's the medic. So everyone's saying, first I'm like, okay, if they're asking him, he's okay. And obviously as his wife, the first thing I wanted to do was call him up and say, what's going on? But I couldn't, I wasn't, he needs to do what he needs to do right now. And I need to pretend like I don't know about that. And then I was like, okay, like this is, I can't write letters for each girl. An hour later, I get a video from an alumni that got engaged, and she sends a voice note with her and her fiance, and they're in the car after the engagement. And she said, Shira, I'm engaged, and you'll never believe what my chatan did for me. The pasuk because every girl, when I write about them at banquet, I connect it to a pasuk. So she said, the pasuk that you chose for me at banquet, he turned it into a song. And he wrote his own song and he played it for me. And he said that this pasuk is now for me. And we are now, your continuation of you exuding this pasuk is something you're going to give to our children. And she thanked me for the pasuk. I was like, okay, Ribbono Shel Olam, evanti. Like, okay, I get it. I'm supposed to write about every girl. And I think that's very important to understand. that there are going to be times that there's no koach. There's no koach, like really no koach. And that's when you say to Hashem, and we started with this also, I'm doing this for you. Like I'm watching your children. I'm looking after your children. And the director of the children's home always says to me, he's like, Shira, whoever watches over Hashem's children, Hashem watches over theirs. And it's so true. Like I really feel in so many ways, Ribbono Shel Olam is just, he's raising my kids. I'm like, I don't know how that happened, that kid's, wow. Like that, like, thanks Hashem, well done. That kid's amazing. So a lot of tefillot. And I think that if an educator remembers and understands what he or she is doing and puts that in the forefront of their mind, then the hardships get smaller because the meaning is so much larger.
Wow. I can say that word over and over, and I just have to say, kol hakavod. It's on behalf of probably everybody listening. Like it's being a wife of somebody that's in the army is not an easy job, and also running a seminary, as you said before, and as people are hopefully getting a glimpse in this episode, it's not easy. So I can imagine what the past year and a half, 2 years has been for you, and just thank you on behalf of the entire Jewish people. First of all, gotta say that. Then also, that was a very touching story. I don't know who the Talmida is, and maybe she's listening to this one, so shout out to her. But yeah, it's a really special thing, and the fact that you were able to do that and take the time, and you got to see the impact, and obviously Hashem was sending you a good message right there.
Her name's Megan. We'll give her a shout out.
Megan, she's probably
Megan and Nathan.
Megan and Nathan, did they get married yet?
Yeah, they just got married.
Wait, Nathan, I think I know the guy. Could I say his name, Nathan Orbach?
Yeah.
There we go. Nathan, if you're listening to this, I love you. We went to Shraga together. Phenomenal guy.
Oh, that's wild.
That is awesome. Okay, so there we go. Having a personal moment, and hopefully we gotta send this. I'll send the episode to him, and I'll tell him to get this far. But I really think that it's you watch over Hashem's children, and Hashem watches over you. That was a really good point also. And something I know before we got into this episode, we were discussing when I asked you one of the topics that you want to discuss. There's a line that I want you to touch on, which is, you correct me if I'm wrong, from the head to the heart and the heart back to the head. Correct? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
I think that's a very important point to discuss at this point in our episode with everything going on. So talk to me and everybody else about what that means.
Judaism is a relationship. And like every other relationship we have in life, it requires time and requires knowledge and understanding, and it requires emotion. It requires love. I think that if we look at our relationship with Hashem any differently, we're at risk to having an unhealthy relationship. Meaning, let's say a husband and a wife, right? If it's a relationship of knowledge, he understands her so well. He knows what she wants. He knows that, when she comes home, she likes this certain coffee and this Danish waiting for her, and he does it. So that's knowledge, and he's able to do it because that's what he understands she needs, and she tells him to do. Take the heart out of that. What is that? She comes home, the Danish and the coffee are there, and he doesn't say, how are you? Because that wasn't part of the list of things that she needs. And he doesn't take her bags because that wasn't on the list either. He doesn't say, wait, I see that you look like something happened today. What's going on? Because the relationship is only knowledge. Now, what happens if it's only heart? That's also very dangerous. It's very intense. It's very unhealthy, right? He'll do what he thinks is right. He'll say, I love her so much. I'm going to throw her a huge surprise party, and all her friends are going to come, and her parents are going to come, and they're going to fly in. And she hates surprises. And now it's a fight, and they're not talking to each other, and he doesn't understand why, because I love her, right? But there's no knowledge. I don't even know who she is. Like, I don't even know, right? Like the classic line, you don't even know me. Like, that's like the biggest fight. I always warn my students, he's not going to know you. Like, you need to tell him. So that's why the head and the heart need to be super connected when it comes to your Judaism as well. And what is the head? The head is halacha. The head is halacha. It's learning. It's sitting, and it's steigen and steig away and learn and learn and learn and learn, because you can't do it if you don't know what you're doing. Like, you can't do the things for Ribbono Shel Olam that he wants you to do so badly if you don't know what those things are. So get learning. Spend the whole year elbow deep in sperm. Walk around with a sefer. Have a sefer next to your bed. Have whatever is socially appropriate, do it, right? Sperm always, wherever you go. So what do I do about the heart? The heart is For everyone, it's going to be different. Some people have a much easier time connecting with heart, and some people have a much harder time. I'll give three things that actually the Ramchal speaks about, which is in order to have ahava, in order to have love when it comes to relationship with Hashem, you need three things: simcha, dveikut, and kina. You need happiness, you need dveikut, you need to cling to the thing, and you need kina, you need zealousness. So what's simcha? Simcha, it's very easy, right? If you're doing the mitzvah and you're not doing it happily, you need to fix it. You need to figure out why this mitzvah isn't making me happy. Maybe I don't understand enough about it. Maybe, maybe I have some type of like preconceived notion of what this mitzvah is. Remember we said I'm just swallowing it wrong. Mitzvahs make you happy. What's dveikut? Dveikut is I have zero separation between Hashem all day long. He's everywhere I go. Every single place I go, I take Hashem with me. I don't know how much time we have. I'll just tell you a quick story that there was a chassid that in the Holocaust that he took all of his talmidim into the gas chamber. And he was saying, Gam even though I walk in these terrible places in the shadow of death, I'm not scared because you're with me. But he's saying it wrong. He's saying it, Gam even though I'm walking in the shadows of death, no ira, I'm not scared. Ra, but it's so bad, ki atay madi. And the Talmidim say, this is our last song that we're singing to Hashem. Why are you changing it on us now? And he said, I can't sing it any other way. I'm not scared. This is what Hashem wants me to do. This is where I am. I don't understand Hashem's ways. But it's so ra because he has to be here too. We don't understand that every single place we go, Rebbeinu Shalom is coming with us. And to understand that, I don't get to take my hat off, right? Like I always tell students, you're wearing your MTC hat all year long. It goes with you every single place you go. You want growth, you take it with you. It's authentic. And the last thing is kina. And this is a really important one. How much am I willing to fight for my Judaism? If you really loved someone, let's say, I don't know if you have a little brother. Little brothers, this is like, maybe because I grew up with little brothers. The little brothers, I just have such a, man, little brothers are so cute. If someone bullies your little brother, slicha, excuse me, the end. The end. Who do you think you are? You're not allowed to talk to my brother that way. You're not allowed to, no, get away. We never want to see you here again. Okay? And it's the same thing with your relationship with Hashem. And this is such an easy thing to do. If someone is saying something bad about your Judaism, if someone's saying something, if someone's, Rachmanis, I don't know, like not showing respect to Judaism, and this is for outside, right? For the non-Jews, then you say, excuse me, don't you dare talk about my Judaism that way. Because that's what love is. We stand up for the people we love. We bring the people we love everywhere. We think about them. And we're happy when we're with them. So if you can work on those three things, just broke my pencil. If you can work on those three things your year in Israel, then you'll get from the head to the heart.
Wow. That was very powerful. And honestly, I think that, what I really like about what you're saying is that it's practical and it's tangible for somebody. At the end of the day, like, if you want to have if you want to leave your year in Israel, you want to come out feeling like the most balanced person, hopefully. And with that advice and understanding that it's not only coming from the mind and it's got to come from the heart, like Rachmana liba boy, like Hashem wants your heart, like you got to put it into your Judaism, you got to live it. And I think that was really, really phenomenal advice. As we're coming towards the end of this episode, there's a thought that's been going through my mind of if somebody's listening to this episode throughout the entire time, we're talking about growth and we're talking about chesed and everything is coming together. But if somebody might be listening to this episode that is feeling like they're growing spiritually, and I think honestly this question could be related to somebody who's also outside of their year in Israel, but if somebody's growing spiritually, but at the same time they're struggling interpersonally with those people that they love around them, with even the people that they don't necessarily love, but they should obviously be working on themselves, what would your advice be to those people?
It's a very important question. It's also a great way to keep your finger on the pulse. Like if you're learning Torah and you feel agitated all the time by people and people are getting on your nerves, then that's a great sign that you need to spend time working on it. Rav Elimelech Mlijansky has a tefillah called Adarabah, and it's all you're supposed to Hasidim say when they start their day, and I think everyone should. And it's all about seeing everyone like giving people the benefit of the doubt, and being able to see their yitronot, being able to see their positive traits and not focus on their negative traits. And I think by saying that every single day, it'll definitely help that person understand what they're supposed to be looking for when they see somebody else. And I believe that it should be chovah for every single Jew to say, because like I said so many times throughout this podcast, that midot are an integral part of who we are. And ben adam lechavero is a pillar in our Judaism. And I'll end with this one other idea. Rav Eliezer Melamed, who very close with, he wrote Pnei Halacha. He's still writing Pnei Halacha. He's mishpacha. So I didn't ask him this once, but I spoke to him about it, and we were talking about how V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, and he speaks about it in his sefer also, Ben Adam L'Chavero. But V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, it's a wild mitzvah, because Hashem is literally commanding something on your heart. Like, how could you command something on your heart? Is it that easy? Like, love this person. Like, oh, okay, it's a commandment. I'll love him. It's different than all other commandments. Lulav, I can do. Shabbos, I could do. Kosher, I could do. How in the world am I supposed to love this person? If commanding things on our heart were that easy, then the world would look very different than it is today. And Rav Eliezer says that every single feeling we have is strengthened and comes with an action. And love, the action that causes love, is giving. And that's why every single one of the mitzvot, they're not there because of any other reason other than the reason that it's the only way to get me to do v'ahavta l'recha kamocha. I cannot love someone if I don't give to them. It's not possible. And Rabbanit Yemima Mizrahi, she always says, if you're in a fight with your husband, make him a cup of coffee. The first thing you do, make him a cup of coffee, because when you give, your brain is automatically being triggered to love. Like I said in the beginning, I worked with autistic kids my year in Israel. They did not speak to me. My year in Shirut Lumi. They did not speak to me. They did not look at me. They did not say my name. I had not one experience with them. I loved them to death. I was obsessed with them. And I got nothing. It's just because I gave and I gave and I gave and I gave. You're a person that's having hard time with interpersonal friendships and relationships. Give to the people until your heart starts to love them.
That was really, really special advice, because I think that, for people at the end of the day, it gets so complicated. You have somebody in front of you, you're struggling to get along with them, and it could ruin your day sometimes. And at the end of the day, by the way, that advice about making your spouse a cup of coffee, love that one. Really practical. And obviously I'm going to tell it to my wife after this episode, but is that, at the end of the day, it's when it gets hard, you just got to do. You got to give. Think about the other person. And sometimes when you think about the other person, as you're saying, then everything else works itself out. And I really think that was very practical advice. And everything that we've discussed in this episode has been practical and tangible. And one of my favorite things about doing this podcast, and I tell this to people behind the scenes all the time, is that it's like I get my own personal shir. So this has been phenomenal, and I really, really appreciate it. And I'm going to end off with my final question to you. And Dafka did not tell you this one before we started this episode, is that whoever's listening to this episode, at any stage they're at in life, pre-Israel, in Israel, post-Israel, if there was one message that you could give to them that was like, keep this message in your pocket for the rest of your life, what would that be? There you go. Putting you on the spot.
Yes. Oh, wow. Okay. I think it would be, it's obviously from Mesilas Yesharim, of course. I think the Ramchal brings a really incredible Gemara that talks about the pasuk. It says in Tehillim, Ashrei ish asher lo alach b'atzat rishayim, praiseworthy is the man that didn't go in the path of the wicked, and that he didn't walk and he didn't stand with the sinners, and he didn't sit with the jokesters. So Avodah Zarah has a beautiful interpretation of this pasuk, and Avodah Zarah says in Yud Chet Amud Bet, Im halach, because if he walks with them, Sofo la'amod, he'll end up standing with them. V'im amad, and if he stands with them, Sofo l'shev, he's going to end up sitting with them. And I think that this is the most important piece of advice that I would always want in my pocket, that the people that we hang out with are the people that we end up spending more time with, and those are the people we end up becoming. And wherever you end up in the world, to surround yourself by people you want to walk with, stand with, and sit with. Because the Yetzer Hara is a real thing, and none of us are perfect, and we all need that help. And our friends should only be people that help us become better.
Honestly, the fact that I put you on the spot and you came up with that, kol hakavod. I feel like I got my plug again to open up with Messias Sharm, because I could be honest and tell everybody it's been a while since I've opened it up since yeshiva, and it's on my shelf. I have it right here, so it's really like that lesson is so also tangible. Again, like if anybody's thinking about what can I do on a day-to-day basis, just surround yourself with good people, because you become who you surround yourself with, and I think that really goes far. And I'm definitely adding that one to my pocket. So really appreciate that. And as I start off the episode with a Karsa Tov, and I know you're a busy person running a seminary, I'm going to end off with a Karsa Tov. Like, thank you so much for taking the time to be part of this conversation, to be part of the Israel podcast, and supporting our the work that we do, because it's something that I really appreciate from the top of a seminary, and it was just a phenomenal conversation, and I really appreciate
on behalf of all the seminaries and all the yeshivas, thank you for helping students get to Israel for the year. Thank you for helping the young men and the young women who wouldn't necessarily know what their options are, give them those options, because this year is life changing. And like we said before, it's a little piece of Gan Eden, and every Jew deserves that slice.
Wow, that was great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And Bezrat Hashem, looking forward to part 2.
Bye, Avi. All the best. Bye.
That is a wrap for this week's episode, and I really hope you guys enjoyed that tangible advice and that honest conversation from Mrs. Melamed. It was just, I was blown away, honestly, from hearing somebody that runs a seminary, that has to be a parent of children when her husband is in Lebanon fighting for the Jewish people, and just everything that goes into her job. I hope you guys felt like you got a glimpse into what it takes to be the director of a seminary, and just the inspiration that she shared. I'm just tremendously appreciative that you took the time to join us. And if you guys want to learn more about Midreshet Torat Chessed or all the different amazing seminaries as we shouted out on our podcast, obviously check out our Instagram page. We are here to help everybody figure out exactly where the place is right for them. And I hope you guys enjoyed. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with somebody that you think could take a little bit of chizuk. Thank you guys so much for watching this week's episode, and we'll see you guys next week. All the best, everybody.